NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers has been sidelined this weekend after contracting COVID-19. Rodgers is unvaccinated. He acknowledged that after getting the diagnosis. But back in August, he told reporters he was, quote, immunized.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized. You know, there's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys.
Immunized and vaccinated may seem like a minor semantic difference, but in this case, it means that Rodgers has not received any of the 3 CDC-approved COVID-19 vaccines. He petitioned the NFL to be considered vaccinated after receiving alternative treatments to boost his immunity. The league denied his petition. The NFL and Rodgers' team, the Green Bay Packers, are now under fire for their handling of COVID-19 protocols. For more on this, I want to bring in senior NFL insider for CBS Sports HQ, Josina Anderson. Josina, great to have you with me. So people are asking now, did Aaron Rodgers get preferential treatment because he's such a big star?
Well, he did get preferential treatment when you consider the fact that the NFL has laid out strict protocols. The protocol set in August 30th of this year, that is over 90 pages long. It's sitting here to my right. And when you consider the fact that violations have occurred and there's not yet been discipline for them, and when you also consider the fact that the NFL, the NFLPA, and also the Packers were all aware of his status.
And I think that's a very important point, that they were, in fact, aware of his status. Now he's been diagnosed with having COVID-19. How are Rodgers' teammates responding, and how will the NFL change its COVID protocols after this?
Well, I think that you can see that obviously the players and even just around the league, there's immense respect for the football accomplishments of Aaron Rodgers. But the problem is that those accomplishments obviously cannot cloak his responsibilities when it comes to minding the protocols that the NFL has set, particularly when you test positive for COVID. And there are a number of violations and protocols that can occur if you are unvaccinated. You're required to test daily, even on off days. You're subject to a 10-day wait. Even as he waits to come back, he has to have 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. They have to wear masks indoors. They have to wear devices that record their tracking. They can't participate in indoor meetings and so on and so forth. So what it's going to be now for the league is to go back and look at that video surveillance and see if there were any additional infractions beyond what is already evident to the public. And what I also think is very interesting, if you look at the protocols set forth in August 30th that they wrote out and released to the public and obviously distributed to the league, one thing that they say is, as far as when it comes to reporting, is that club personnel are required to promptly report to the club's infection control officer and to the NFL if a violation has occurred. And also, this is very interesting, it says this in the protocols, that there is a weekly certification after each game. The infection control officer and the head team physician and the GM or the senior football exec are required to fill out a form that is provided by the NFL certifying that the team has followed the protocols week to week. So when you look at that and the fact that even at the top of this enforcement section that the NFL says that it will strictly enforce compliance and that you can be subject up to a fine of a week's pay, not to exceed $50,000 for the first offense, and thereafter you can be disciplined if they deem that your conduct has risen to conduct detrimental. There's definitely a lot to consider here. But the problem, though, is the awareness of the league of his status. So that definitely clouds what happens here with the discipline and certainly the credibility potentially of the league.
And Josina, you know, as you were explaining some of the protocols in that big 90 pages worth of standards for the NFL, one of which is that Rodgers wasn't supposed to be in a closed room with all these other reporters, sports journalists like yourself, speaking without a mask. And even if the league knew about it, those other folks that he was with certainly have every right to feel that he lied to them or misled them, depending on how severe the responses are from individuals. Rodgers made a lot of false or misleading statements about vaccines and natural remedies. Do those statements have an impact on fans? What responsibility does the NFL have to push back on false statements?
Well, when they make up a protocol that's over 90 pages and they talk about strictly enforcing those protocols, and obviously doing that because they profess to want to mind the safety and health of its players, absolutely, the league and its players have a huge responsibility and platform to make sure that they're not only doing it for itself, but also for the message that it projects to society, particularly if those statements are misleading or just flat out wrong. And when you talk about the violation when it comes to having to wear a mask, when in press conferences, that's what unvaccinated players are supposed to do. Matter of fact, the Packers had players who were unvaccinated that did participate in Zoom meetings with the media to follow that guideline.
Right.
And Aaron Rodgers' response to that is that he doesn't feel as if he needs to wear a mask when he's around vaccinated people, because the whole notion, according to him, is that they're vaccinated against what the concern is. That was his response in the interview that he did with Pat McAfee. But either way, that is definitely a violation. But again, the problem for the league is their awareness of his status when it comes to what is going to happen here with discipline. And also because reports have already stated that right now, the assumption is that he is not going to be suspended. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of reaction to this discipline, if that's not the case, rather. Sorry.
I want to zoom out a little bit from this particular case and talk more about the world of sports, because the NBA has its own vaccination issues. Obviously, the Nets aren't playing Irving until he gets the shot. Is there concern about an anti-vax movement in the pro sports world and how that affects all the rest of us who potentially look up to these folks as leaders in our communities?
I don't think that there's concern for an anti-vax movement. I think that you see individuals flexing their personal beliefs and standards for themselves. I think what you see going on in sports is just a microcosm or reflection of what's already going on in society. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a movement. You just have people who hold hard beliefs, and it just happens. So for the NFL, that one of its biggest stars is somebody who does not want to be vaccinated. And really, given that that is his stance, it stands to be observed what he's going to do moving forward, considering that he obviously outlined these beliefs and they're so strong, and what the NFL protocol is moving forward. But I don't think that there is a movement. And I do think that there's been a lot of compliance, even with the players who are not vaccinated. And there are people who obviously have been more forthcoming with their status than Aaron Rodgers up through the point of the interview with Pat McAfee.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there are lots of other people who are still following the rules, even if they choose not to get vaccinated, in a way that's very
and also clear about their status as well. And that's really the issue, because he was talking about bodily autonomy and his beliefs. And I don't think people are arguing bodily autonomy. What they're talking about is clarity with regards to questions that are asked when it comes to your health. And even then, a player can say no comment or choose not to answer. They still have to follow the protocols in and around the facility. But it was the way in which the question was answered, and also potential compliance from the team, in addition to the awareness from the league and the NFLPA.
Right. And the inability of other people then to make decisions about their own bodily autonomy based off of what was misleading information. Josina Anderson, great to talk to you. Thanks.